This video will deal with barriers to marketing planning. It's the second video that completes the 10 barriers. The first video had the first 3. And this is the final part. So we'll start with number 4. We've done the first 3, as I said, in the previous video. And the fourth one are organisational barriers. The structure of an organisation can be a barrier to marketing planning. Most organisations are structured under functional departments. There is very little communication and cooperation between the departments, perhaps. Sometimes departments can be very territorial and very defensive about their positions within the organisation, and there seems to be boundaries or marking out territory involved in the various departments. And that is not to the advantage of the business. That's something that's not to be encouraged, because information should flow freely around the organisation, and various other departments could benefit from one particular department's experiences or some issue that they have confronted. So it's important that information flows freely. However, sometimes departments can, as I said, be very defensive and very secretive about their operations. Marketing planning is a difficult process to adopt when functional departments are only concerned about their own goals and objectives rather than the corporate goals. Marketing planning, don't forget, is trying to look at the organisation in total, trying to get a direction for the organisation in terms of the marketplace and its position and the product it develops, its research and development effort, and the actual product it delivers to the market. So the marketing planning people are dealing with the whole organisation, and it's very difficult for them to function effectively if individual departments are being secretive or not cooperating fully. So organisational barriers are an issue. Organisations should be structured around strategic business units, the SBU, and the focus should be on customer groups, products and services. So if the various departments were somehow gathered together in terms of a strategic business unit and structured around this concept of working together, and seeing the strategic business unit as requiring attention and requiring inputs from the various expertises, then that would be more constructive, because then the marketing department would deal, in a sense, almost centrally with all of the information that's flowing back. Marketing planning can easily be communicated and carried out in strategic business units rather than functional departments. So when there's a much more fluid structure, getting away from the strict functional areas and the strict compartmentalization of functions, when there's a much more fluid structure, then information can flow more readily, and it'll be easier for the marketing section to get consistency and effective planning working under those conditions. Now, lack of in-depth analysis. Well, most organisations lack information for undertaking in-depth analysis. On the other hand, managers compile a lot of information which is not relevant. It's as if the organisation can lose focus. It lacks the information for proper analysis, and it's not quite sure how to go about it. In the absence of a good marketing director and a good marketing department who knows what's required in terms of market analysis and who will drive through or champion the whole exercise to try and get the information from the marketplace, do proper analysis, conduct focus groups, perform interviews, do some market research, talk to clients and so on. If that doesn't happen, then the business will be affected because they're not necessarily addressing customer needs, and therefore their marketing effort will be affected, and their sales will be affected. Their long-term prosperity will be affected. Managers seem to, in many organizations, compile a lot of information, but it's not necessarily focused information. It's just information. In some respects, it's not even information, it's data. They're collecting data and holding data. Information is useful. Information is data which has been processed into a useful form. Well, the information or the data that the managers are collecting, it may be broadly irrelevant. Organizations must adopt marketing intelligence systems that allow for information gathering and the in-depth analysis of the environment. It's important for the organizations to know about the environment in which they work. Not just the physical environment, the planet Earth, but the political environment, the social environment, the economic environment. They must know what's happening outside of the organization, as well as what's happening inside the organization. They must have some understanding of the current trends in society, the current areas for concern and discussion. And they must make products that addresses that. They must also have some intelligence about markets and not only the way the markets work, but the requirements of the markets and the way that the markets are changing over time with the advent of technology and greater powers for the consumer and greater information flowing around because of social networks and because of better communications channels. And look at the competitors. The competitors are not sitting idly by. They're innovating, they're changing, they're adopting new strategies. And it's important that the company adopts positions which will defend itself and even promote itself in the face of the activities of the competitors. Conduct a SWOT, a strength, weaknesses, opportunities and threats analysis. Conduct the SWOT and be as crude and as blatant as possible. Anticipate every conceivable threat and write it down, and then prioritise them to see if they're likely to happen. Look at the strengths of the organisation and be reasonable about them. Don't exaggerate them. Don't underplay them either. Be honest. Look at the weaknesses of the organisation and again be honest. If certain departments are weak, why are they weak? Is it because they don't have enough capital, they're underfunded, or perhaps the staff have not been adequately trained? Look at the opportunities. Look at the weaknesses of the competitors and be as honest, be as open and honest as possible in the whole exercise. There's no point in doing it otherwise. And when it's completed, prioritise and look at which of these factors are most pressing. There's also a confusion between process and output. Confusion still stand on the market plan, its process and its output. Marketing planning sometimes is not widely understood within the organisation. The need for it is not understood. To many it may seem as a waste of time, a waste of effort. In fact, it's the marketing plan that's going to give direction for the whole business and indicate what the business should be looking into and what it should be doing. Marketing plans contain masses of information, and maybe that's the problem. Senior management fail to acknowledge because there's too much information and sometimes people can't assimilate too much information. Perhaps marketing plans should be very short documents which will get straight to the point and which will provoke discussion and more detailed consideration. Elaborate brochures or documents perhaps are off-putting. They don't command the same respect. People want information, they want it fast. Perhaps that's a function of the world in which we live at the moment. We want quick information. We don't have to wade through big documents to try and fish out what's important and what's not important. We want it done for us. Maybe we just become lazy over time, or technology has developed to do the work for us. The marketing planning process and output is information. It's the internal and external information that we can find. It's information. It's based on data. It's based on facts as far as possible. And then it's processed information. Of course, it may be based on opinions of practitioners, or opinions of experts, or opinions of the customer, or of various clients in the marketplace. It can be based on a whole range of sources, but it's information. And as far as possible, there should be efforts to ensure that the information is accurate. And marketing intelligence, which forms the marketing plan. This is useful information that's picked up by the marketing department based on their knowledge of the market, knowledge of customer needs, customer requirements, based on trends, technologies, advances, changes, policies from the government. It looks at various sources and tries to make sense of these in the context of the business and what the business does. It's the process of setting objectives and marketing strategies. So marketing planning is about setting objectives, setting where the company should be in a year or 2 years or 5 years' time, trying to develop, if you like, strategic plans that stretch into the future, which will give the business direction so that the various departments within the business will know what they're aiming at. They're not just drifting along firefighting, just drifting along and solving problems as they go. It's an organisation with a purpose, and the purpose is to achieve the objectives set out in the plan, perhaps strategic objectives over the next 3 to 5 years. It should also look at the resources the organisation hopes to invest. What sources of investment revenue has the business got? How can it keep up to date with changes in technology and different customer needs? How can it afford quality research and development? How can it innovate the product? How can it finance this? So it needs to look critically at the resources and the sources of revenue that are available to the business for this purpose. The output is the output of the implementation of the marketing plan. That's what the output is. The output is what happens when the plan is put into effect. The output is the extent to which the business is meeting the targets set in the marketing plan. If it's not meeting the targets, it should prompt an investigation. It should prompt intervention by management to see where the targets are not being met. And to that end, performance indicators should be put in place as well to ensure that they are hitting the targets and that there is critical scrutiny of all of the functions of the business to ensure that the targets are being met. There's a lack of knowledge and skills. Well, lack of knowledge and skills is a major barrier to marketing planning. Lack of knowledge is serious because clearly the people don't know what they're doing or the direction in which to move. A lack of skills can be compensated for by training programs. And if the lack of skills, the shortage of skills, is identified, then perhaps training programs can be put in place. Although they're expensive, at least they can be put in place to try and rectify the problem. Marketing managers need to have good knowledge of marketing theory and its application. Marketers need to be able to effectively apply marketing techniques in their job. So it's important that marketing managers are versed with the latest thinking in their subject, in their area, marketing. Not just out-of-date techniques, but they should be up to date with the current thinking, because that's the way knowledge works. It updates itself over time, and it's updated by academics and by writers in the area, and greater insights are gained over time and material is polished and brought up to date. So it's important that the managers who are working in this area have this knowledge as well. There is management assumption that marketers possess both knowledge and skill to be effective at their job. This is not always the case. There is a management assumption that marketers possess both knowledge and skills, but sometimes that's not the case. Sometimes the marketers have come from different departments and been promoted wrongly, perhaps in terms of their career, and been promoted into the marketing department and don't have the requisite skills or background, and perhaps that was a mistake. But there is an assumption that people working in marketing have the skills and competencies that are required. It's not always the case. It's necessary to appraise these skills from time to time, perhaps by having a yearly appraisal and seeing what additional skills have been acquired in the meantime. Marketers must have good communications and interpersonal skills. They must have appropriate skills to be able to communicate their marketing plans to senior management and to employees throughout the strategic business unit. It's important that the marketers should have good interpersonal and communication skills. They need to communicate the message. What is the direction of the business? What have they found in terms of customer requirements, customer needs? What have they found in terms of competitor behavior? What's the future of the business, in other words? And they need to communicate that effectively. And they need to be able to identify different audiences within the organization, because different departments will want the same message, but they may want it presented differently to them, presented in the context of their particular department and the implications of what's been found for their particular department. Marketers need to be able to use marketing techniques such as, or at least analyze situations in terms of, let's say, Porter's 5 Forces or the Ansoff Matrix or Product Life Cycle, the Boston Consulting Group or 4Ps or whatever, 5Ps or whatever it is nowadays. So they should be able to use these techniques to present their ideas. So lack of systematic approach to marketing planning. Well, marketing planning needs to be approached in a systematic manner. It can't just be rushed at. It has to be thought about and it has to be logically worked out. What is the marketing planning? What is the marketing planning requirements and how should it be worked out? Organizations operate efficiently when there are systems in place. These systems can be informal or highly formalized. Depends. But organizations depend on systems. They need to know how planning is going to be conducted. What are the procedures? What's the steps? Who's involved? How long will it take? What are the resources required? What are the implications of the planning? So it's a logical system. Now, these could be organized informally. Maybe the marketing director organizes some informal meetings and gradually forms into a more cohesive unit which does the marketing planning. So it could become formalized. Systems ensure that processes are followed and actions are taken when they're supposed to. The organization has a standard which needs to be adhered to. So systems, if they're well designed and have worked in the past, they could be looked at and perhaps used again. The systems could be used, but it's dangerous to not have flexibility built in as well, because the situations change so rapidly because of greater customer awareness, greater customer needs, the need for constant redesign and re-engineering, and the constant need for updating and research and development, and the efficiency issues that the organization need to take on board, the competitive situation, globalization, and so on. So having systems is good, but they must be flexible. They must be capable of adjustment if required. But the organisation should have a standard, and the standard is what holds the whole process in place. Once the standard is agreed, once the processes that need to be undertaken are agreed, then they should be followed through. Otherwise, it's a waste of time constantly trying to invent or reinvent the processes that need to be taken, when that effort should be actually channeled into research, analysis and implementation of changes that are to the benefit of the organisation, because customers will benefit from the changes. Organisations must have some format or written procedures which enable systems to be effective. Ideally, the systems should be written down and well understood. It could be informal, as I said, and informal ones have advantages because they tend to be very flexible and can come together very quickly, and outcomes tend to be more relaxed, but at the same time could be very significant. The danger with the informal ones is that there's a lack of seriousness about the whole procedure, and also when it becomes formalized, it could become inflexible, as I said a few moments ago. It's important that all the current marketing issues are considered by the marketer. It's important that as much information is gathered from the marketplace and customers are contacted and their perceptions of the product gathered, and criticisms of the company are also picked up, maybe from customer services. To bring together the strategic marketing plan, taking into account each strategic business unit. That's what needs to happen. Written procedures which enable the systems to be effective to bring together the strategic marketing plan. The systems should be able to take information from different sections and form a cohesive and logical plan, not disjointed. So it has a very clear picture for the direction in which the business should travel. And this helps senior management consider current business activities and conditions, and offers an insight into future business prospects. So it's important that senior management are involved and recognise the importance of the whole process. There may be a failure to prioritise objectives. Objective setting is an element of marketing planning, and it determines the success of the plan. So it's important that objectives are clearly set out. A marketing plan can consist of many objectives, further broken down into sub-objectives, but it's important that the objectives are set out, discussed, understood, and that there is some sort of agreement, broad agreement about the objectives. Where does the business want to be? These objectives could start to form into the strategic plans that the business will follow over the next, say, 3 to 5 years. So objective setting is important. What are the objectives? Where does the business want to be? How is it going to do it? Who's going to be involved? What's the time scale? What are the resources required? And how will it affect customer satisfaction at the end and the customer experience? Because that must be borne in mind right throughout. Organisations fail to prioritise objectives on level of importance and fail to allocate time resources for each objective. That's the danger. The danger is, having set out a whole series of objectives, which one should be picked first? Which one is most important? And there may be severe disagreements about this. If the business is organised on functional grounds, the heads of the various functions will fight for their own function. Not necessarily to the benefit of the whole organisation. So what's right for each of the functions is not necessarily right for the organization, for the company. So a company perspective is required. In other words, the objectives need to be prioritized that will enable the business to flourish and the business to survive, not the individual functions. If the business goes, there won't be a function, or there won't be a set of functions. It's very easy for senior management to become overwhelmed by day-to-day work activities, which results in the non-implementation of the market plan. That's the problem. Sometimes management get caught up in the day-to-day activities of the business. They get caught up so much that they can't take a strategic perspective. They can't see the business strategically. They're too busy. They're too busy doing what's needed right now, which means they're constantly working in the here and now. There's no planning, and there's no adherence to plan, and the importance of planning is not coming through. So it's important for the senior management to take the strategic view that will give the business direction, not to get caught up in the day-to-day activities. Organizations must ensure that objectives are prioritized based on their importance and urgency. Resources should be allocated accordingly. And that's important. It's important that senior management identify the objectives and identify which objectives need to be met immediately and which are more strategic, which ones need to be met in the long run, which starts to form the basis of the marketing plan, the direction in which the business is running, the priority or importance, if you like, that they give to product development, to investment in new technology, to training the staff, to logistics, to market research. These are long-run activities, long-run programs, but they're the ones that are going to yield the results in the future and lead to stability, business stability into the future. The hostile corporate culture. Well, corporate culture presents a widespread ignorance to marketing planning. Maybe that's a strong way of putting it, but sometimes companies get so fixated by what they're doing now that they forget about the marketing planning. They get caught up in their own battles for resources and negotiations, and they start to lose sight of the long-run strategic direction of the business. They start to worry about their own functional areas and their own career paths, and they're deflected from thinking strategically about the business. So the business plan becomes almost irrelevant. It gets lost in the organization. Organizations present the attitude that one size fits all. Organizations concentrate on one marketing plan and apply it to different stages of the organization's development. Can be easily done. They've got a marketing plan, so they apply it everywhere. They apply it in all segments of the market and right throughout the market. They've got a strategy. That's what they consider. In fact, the segments of the market all require particular attention. They have their own requirements, their own needs, and the one size fits all is not appropriate. The business plan should be run according to the requirements of particular markets. So instead of having one business plan, there may be several business plans, all aimed at different parts of the market, different segments of the market. Most organizations fail to identify that marketing planning is tailored to an organization's requirements. The marketing planning looks at the organization's requirements. What does the organization want? Where does it want to be in 5 years' time? What priority does it put on the image of quality and the image of satisfying the customer requirements and what priority does it put on these things? On training, on reinvestment, on product development, on being innovative, being entrepreneurial. So the marketing plan can only be developed if it's got the support of senior management, and senior management identify these as important processes for the long-term success of the business. The stage of the organisation life and corporate culture affects the success of the marketing plan. If the organisation is new, they may be very keen on developing a marketing plan to try and guide them. But when the organisation has been around for some time and it thinks it knows the market, and somehow the importance of marketing planning seems to fade because the senior management think they know what the market is, they know what the customers want. But in fact, markets are changing all the time. There's new communications methods and greater information amongst consumers, and there's globalization and the possibility of buying products online. These are new or relatively new phenomena. So organizations need to keep abreast of these. So organizational life and corporate culture, that runs, if you like, internal to the organization. The business plan, the marketing plan in particular, must look to outside the business. What are the forces that will determine the destiny of the business? And try to make products at prices that meet the customer requirements so that the long-term success of the business is assured. Corporate culture represents a widespread ignorance to marketing planning. Sometimes, again, a strong statement, but sometimes that is the case. Sometimes corporate culture is, we know what we're doing. It's macho management almost. We know what we're doing. We know our customers. We don't need a marketing plan. It's a waste of time. We will do this. We know what we're doing. It's common sense. We will deal with it. And that sort of attitude leads to a lack of planning, which can lead to a lack of direction and can be destructive towards the organisation as a whole. Organisations present the attitude that one size fits all. Organisations concentrate on one marketing plan, as I said earlier, and apply it in different situations. That is wrong. Different situations require different plans. And it's important that the business shows flexibility and the ability to cope with differences in the marketplace. And as I said earlier, most organizations fail to identify that marketing planning is tailored to an organization's requirements. It's absolutely important that the organization's requirements are identified, but also the requirements of the market are identified. And any mismatch between the two represents issues where management is required to reconcile those. The stage of the organisation life, as I said earlier as well, and corporate culture, these are important. The more mature businesses may feel confident about the market and feel that the need for planning is not so pressing. Whereas newer organisations fighting for their position in the market may be more willing to engage in long-term planning. But the danger with corporate culture is that it becomes complacent, and the market is not complacent. The market is dynamic. We have globalization and innovations caused by technological change and communication systems which are immensely different from the past. So it's important that the corporate culture, if there is such a thing, is flexible and up to date and trying to lead rather than follow. So these are the issues associated with barriers to marketing planning. These are the issues 4 to 10 in this class. The first set, 1 to 3, was in a previous video. It's important to make a note of these, so go back over the 2 videos, make your own notes, and be clear about what the issues are here. But that's all I'm going to deal with in this session, so I'm going to leave it at that and say thank you for watching.